eyes on me. It's like I'm caught inside your endless sea, falling fast into the deep. Surrender, won't be sound asleep. Yeah. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss, the sweet attraction. I've never known a love like this, forbidden bliss, consumed in action. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss, the sweet attraction. I've never known a love like this, forbidden bliss. I'm yours. Take me home. Take me home. Take me home. Hold me in your heaven, I won't forget the thrill of it all. Take me home. Breathless, rising to the beat. Infectious, comes so naturally. It's like I'm lost inside your ecstasy, wondering if we could be in heaven. We make our reality. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss, the sweet attraction. I've never known a love like this, forbidden bliss, consumed in action. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss, the sweet attraction. I've never known a love like this, forbidden bliss. I'm yours. Take me home. Take me home. Hold me in your heaven, I won't forget the thrill of it all. Take me home. Take me home. Reckless, more than I've been free. Defenseless, with your eyes on me. It's like I'm caught inside your endless sea, falling fast into the deep. Surrender, won't be sound asleep. Yeah. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss, the sweet attraction. I've never known a love like this, forbidden bliss, consumed in action. I've never known a life like this, lost inside your ecstasy, wondering if we could be in heaven. We make our reality. I've never known a life like this, a stranger's kiss.
Hey everyone, how is it going? Great to see everyone again. It is Claire. We're back here on the 343 Labs YouTube channel. Great to see everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, 343 Labs, we do 343 TV every day at 1 p.m. EST. So thank you all for being here. It's really great to see everyone in the community. I see a couple folks in the chat already. But before I forget, because I always forget about this, everyone, we do have a giveaway today. So I always end up saying this like 10 minutes into the stream or something. So I'll say it right now off the bat. But yeah, we have a giveaway. So if you want to join in on the giveaway, keep an eye out for the chat. But before I even talk about the giveaway, 343 Labs, we are a school that's based in New York and Berlin and online. And like I said, we host a lot of these streams every day. We're actually about to wrap up this season of 343 TV, so very exciting. But thank you to everyone who has joined us for up to 3 seasons. So thank you so much. Oh, wow. I'm just like clapping into my mic. But yay! Please give yourself a round of applause, everyone, for joining our community also. It's been so great to kind of like meet everyone and see how y'all are doing. And I'm really excited for today's topic. But again, I keep jumping around. My brain is all over the place. Haven't had enough coffee yet. So I have my coffee. I hope you have yours too. We know that we love coffee here. And yeah, so today's giveaway, very excited about it too, because it is again from one of my fan companies that I'm a big fan of, iZotope. We are giving away a copy of iZotope's Nectar. Woo-hoo-hoo! One of my very favorite vocal processing types of plugins. So everybody, if you do want to win, please enter the giveaway. We want you to win, at least. Like, I know we want you to win. That's why we have the giveaway. Thank you to our friends from iZotope for their generous offering to let us give this away and give it off. So if you want to enter to win iZotope's Nectar, please go ahead and join us again. But yeah, I see a couple of folks in the chat. Hi, Stav. Hi, Chris, Keith, Thomas behind 343 Labs, named Simple Sam. Hey, how's it going? And hi to Korean Jesus and Samuel and Kai. Yeah, great to see everyone again. Sam, yes, we have been doing this for 3 seasons. So this is like I was talking to somebody else about this, but it kind of just is about that point where we've been in a proper like lockdown-ish sort of situation over here in the States for about a year. So yeah, it's a couple weeks ago, I think, was our 1-year anniversary, or maybe it's coming up soon. I forget. Sometimes time is all like crazy and a little bit amalgamated and you know, crossing over and stuff, which is funny because that's what the devices that we're going to talk about today kind of do. So it's all kind of related. Well, how serendipitous. But yeah, maybe just on the topic of what Simple Sam mentioned about how we have been doing this for 3 seasons, everyone. So if you ever want to look back at previous streams that we've done, all of those are archived on the YouTube channel. I think someone mentioned this a week or 2 ago or something like that. I think their name was like Dija or something else to that end, but they were a little bit complaining about how things were very simple. Well, that's because we have a lot of different people in the community, right? Some of us are all at different stages in our music production journeys, and we want to help you learn, or at least I want to help you learn. I can't necessarily speak for all of the 343 Labs instructors, but I hope everyone's been enjoying the streaming, like, you know, topics that are a bit more advanced, a little bit more easy sometimes, basic, but topics for everyone. And thank you all for joining us again. So today in particular, it is kind of going to be slightly a bit more on the techie side. I may go into professor mode for a quick second, so I do hope that you will forgive me if I do, but it's just because I love talking about this topic so much. So that's a starting point. But yeah, we're going to talk about Spectral Effects today, everyone, inside Ableton Live. Very excited for this, and maybe this could even be like a bonus question. If I'll see if anyone knows the answer to this question in the YouTube chat. But if you can tell me what the 2 new Spectral devices are in Live, I will issue you a virtual cookie that I'll blast through the internet. Or maybe I'll find like a cookie emoji and I'll just put it in the chat. But tell us about the 2 new Spectral devices in Live 11. These are some things that I've touched upon already on the 343 Labs YouTube channel. So if folks have been watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. What are the 2 new spectral devices in Live 11. Simple Sam, at least, thank you. I'm glad that you found it interesting and you found the COVID time interesting. Yeah, a year of that altogether. But let's see if anyone gets it. Spectral something and spectral something. As a hint, which I'm a big fan of, you can also use Google to check it out. And of course, I'll tell you in a little bit too. But yeah, we have spectral devices in Live. The thing about these devices is that they're both audio effects, so maybe even poking everyone on a little bit. If I head over to the audio effects category, and now I'm in Live 11, right? They're not in alphabetical order by default yet. So because of that, it's a little bit trickier to find devices by name. But yeah, Simple Sam, thank you. Spectral Time and another one, totally. So Simple Sam gets half the cookie. And then maybe I'll get the other half. I haven't had a cookie in a long time. You know who else likes cookies a lot? Like Abe and I used to do this a bunch. This is digressing. Abe, who is another instructor at 343 Labs, amazing Abe Duque. He and I used to grab cookies from the place that was like directly across the in-person location of 343 Labs. They were called, I think, Smackeries or Schmackeries. Oh, amazing place. Great coffee as well. So Staff, thank you. Spectral Resonator. Yay, you cheated. That's okay. But you got it. Thank you. And Odd Hive. Yeah, you got it too. Thank you. So cookies for everyone. We'll split up the cookies. Chocolate chip is my favorite, but maybe you have something else that you like. I know some people are allergic. But anyway, let's take a look at where we can find these. But to start off, I was poking around a little bit before this stream because I'm a big fan of Sensel, as you know. And our dear friends at Sensel have been incredibly supportive of 343 Labs. I am a big fan of their Morph, which is their hardware that also does like MPE related stuff. So over here I've got a keyboard sound. But I was poking around with a couple of like interesting MPE things that maybe we might be able to take a look at too. Or I might just look at a couple of these options for like simple mapping and, things like that. So over here, I've got some drums. Let's take a listen to the drums that I have at the moment. While we're getting the drums, YouTube chat, if you can help me out, that would be awesome. Let's get a key. So let's get something, let's get a key in the chat if anyone would like to suggest a key for that. Oh, Mauricio, hello! Top back. Greetings. Thank you so much for joining in. And yes, thank you, Thomas, also for putting in the link for the giveaway, which is the Nectar VST. Please enter the giveaway. We want you to win. That's why we do these things. But in the meantime, I'll wait for a... Oh my gosh, it's Mr. Sensel in the chat. That's amazing. Hi, Mr. Sensel. We joke about this a lot, but no, thank you always for supporting us. Let's take a listen to the drums that I have over here. I think I just pulled this over from the live library, actually. Let's go ahead and I'm going to take a look at the loop and just bump up the gain a little bit so that it's we see the waveform a bit more clearly. And let's also just zoom in a little more. I pressed Z on my computer keyboard to do that. Now that we're over here, let's take a listen to what this sounds like, and maybe we'll just bring it back to the original tempo of the loop. So let's do 172. And while I wait for a key from the chat, let's take a listen to what we're working with so far. Ooh. Wow, this totally didn't work correctly. Amazing. No wonder it kind of went to that strange tempo. Let's see if I can pull it in again. It's called Clean Drums 172. Huh. Interesting. Let's go ahead and head over to the samples category. Or we can also pull over a different loop. That's totally fine too. I was just feeling a little bit drum and bassy, so maybe that's why. Yeah, that's better. Okay, here we go. Nice. And this is 4 bars. Great. So let's go ahead and I'll bump up the gain a tiny bit too. Sean, thank you for the suggestion of A flat. So we're going to go with A flat. And I think, how are we feeling today? Maybe we're feeling a little bit minor-y. So we'll do like A flat minor. Ooh, actually, I'm going to run off a little bit of what you said, Sean, because I think anticipating what we might do, it would be cool to do something in A minor. And I'll show you why in a second. All of this will start to make sense the more I speak about the spectral stuff, but great, thank you. So I got my drums going over here. What I want to do now is create some kind of chord progression that goes along with it, right? So I think what I might do is, let's see, what should we do? Yeah, let's use the piano sound first. And again, it's pretty simple, right? So if I just played a sound like that, we'd be able to get that in. Let's go ahead and just record some things in. And I might start ahead over here and then crop the sample through. So let's do maybe a chord progression in, yeah, let's do a chord progression with A minor, and then maybe we'll copy and paste a couple of things. So I just need to get one chord in. Here we go. Oh, and let's turn on the metronome. One more time. Cool. And actually that's all that I needed, because again, I was thinking about what the fastest way to do this might be, and I tried to throw in a couple of these programming things here and there. So let's go ahead and grab all of these. We'll quantize, and let's just go ahead and do a little bit of transposition for this entire loop. Since we're doing like an A minor-y type of thing, again, I was listening to a little bit of deep house before this, and it's funny how I feel a lot of the music that I make in the moment sometimes is very inspired by stuff that I immediately listened to before. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's grab the A minor, then we'll do a C minor here. So just kind of transposing this below. And then let's do A minor here too. Let's do one more here. Let's make that there. Cool. So now we have some kind of progression. Let's take a listen. Cool. So I think that will be good for now. And that's like the sounds that we're going to work with. And then you might be asking, alas, Claire, where are the spectral effects? They are in the audio effects category, like I mentioned. And I love to start us off today with Spectral Resonator, which is the one that Stav brought up just now. So thank you, Stav. Great. So here we go, everyone. We have Spectral Resonator over here. Something very interesting that just happened, which you just saw me do, is that I removed one of my headphones, and that's because Spectral Resonator, God bless all of these like spectral devices, they are actually a little heavier on CPU, so because of that I started getting a little bit of latency, but it's partially also because of my buffer size settings. Regardless, let's take a listen to what is going on right now. So all that I did was drop Spectral Resonator on. Previously we didn't have it, and now here it is. Yeah. Cool, Spectral Resonator, everyone. So that's what happens when you pull over the default setting. And this is maybe where things might get a little bit, say, techier. If you take a look at what's going over here in this section, we have what's called a spectrogram, which is like a kind of like a spectral sonogram visualizer that we can use to see what type of sound is coming through in this particular device that we're using. If I use one of my most favorite controls ever across any device, that's going to be the dry wet knob. So let's try this out. I'm going to go ahead and use the dry wet knob, and I'll go between dry and wet, and that's going to let us hear a blend between the wet resonated sound that we currently hear and the dry sound. So here we go. Party! Woo! Yeah, great. Cool. So you might have noticed that as I was going more towards the left, the dry, we started seeing more of the yellow signal, right? Or the yellowish orange signal. And that is the original dry signal that's coming in. The wetter the sound is, in this case, I do believe this is how the spectrogram works, the more of the blue stuff we see. So that's why when we're kind of like in the middle or any in-between percentage of these things, we have a mix of both of these. But very cool stuff. Now, one thing that I was immediately noticing when I first started using Spectral Resonator, even outside of the context of, say, just like, trying to make music with it, is that it immediately carried a specific pitch. And that's actually what a resonator is meant to do. It's meant to, create specific resonances in the frequency spectrum that you wouldn't necessarily hear if you didn't have that on. So that's why when we have everything dry, you just hear the drums as they are. But as we move towards wet, there's a certain pitch that's coming up. And I don't know if anyone has perfect pitch in the chat. Maybe you do. Or maybe you have a keyboard near you. I'll give out my second virtual cookie of the day to anyone who actually knows what pitch that is. So that's the resonator pitch. If your screen is big enough, you might also be able to see what exactly it is. But let's play it back again. I'll go between the dry and wet just so we can hear. It might even go with our chords as a little bit of a hint. Cool. So I'm not sure if anyone managed to catch the pitch for that, and it's totally cool. This is a little bit of like a weird sort of trick question. But by default, Spectral Resonator comes in with a resonance of, oh my god, stop, you just got it. Yay, it's A. That note is A, everyone. The reason why we kind of, Aguante Bonavina, thank you also. You got A as well. Yes, it is A. Yay. A part of the reason you might be able to get this easily, either if you have perfect pitch or if you have keyboard, or if you know the frequency spectrum and its numbers associated with it. So by default, the Spectral Resonator comes with this frequency setting of 110 hertz, which is an A. So that's a part of the reason why I very sneakily tried to make this an A minor, because now the chances are if we unsolo this track and we listen to this together, it's going to sound pretty neat. So you get that bass tone of A on the drums, almost like a pedal. Now, the neat thing about this is that if you have this knowledge of frequency stuff, you can actually tune kind of your drums to totally fit in with a certain key. Simple Sam. So it's A then, but cheat out the frequency. Yeah, totally. It's A, but with like a specific pitch. So actually, let's do a little bit of an exercise. I'm gonna go ahead, or not exercise, but really an experiment of sorts. Here is the full Spectral Resonator thing. Right? If I bring this frequency knob up and down, let's take a listen to what happens. So we're hearing all wet now for Spectral Resonator. Yeah! Yeah! Awesome. Let's do A equals 440. Nice, cool. Mix in a little bit of the dry. And now we got that pitch kind of on top. So that's a pretty neat thing that I've been doing quite often since I started using Spectral Resonator, especially in like the beta alpha testing stages of Live 11. I was super excited when this came out. In part, it's because, as you know, I'm a big fan of vocoders, and there's a common sort of algorithm that's used in both vocal synthesis or voice encoding, vocoding, as well as like these resonator devices, and that's called FFTs. So if you ever think about if you ever see anyone use the word FFT or the term FFT, don't be afraid. All that is a term that's used to describe a specific kind of algorithm that we use to analyze audio, kind of deconstruct it, and then re-synthesize things together. So it's really cool. And that's the technology that's being used in Spectral Resonator and Spectral Time that we'll look at later, which Simple Sam mentioned. So that's what is going on. We're dealing with a lot of these like fast Fourier transforms. That's what FFT stands for. There was a wonderful video on FFT analysis, or not video, but a page actually that's written up by someone from the Ableton team. And I think it should be on their website. So if you do feel inclined to look up more, if you're interested in like the techie side of stuff, feel free to do that. And I love to chat about that too. I don't want to nerd out 100% here, although you can obviously tell that I totally would. And that's something that I actually cover with a couple of my more advanced students as well. The idea of using FFT analysis to deconstruct and then resynthesize. So very cool stuff. Let's walk through a couple of the other features that I found to be super cool with Spectral Resonator, and is in part why I wanted to make the chord progression just now. That's because Spectral Resonator has two modes. Internal, which uses its internal frequency settings, so that knob that we were moving just now, and it also has MIDI input. Woo! Cool. So let's head over here, everyone. Now, instead of putting this on internal, I'm going to click on MIDI instead, and you'll notice immediately things changed, right? So here, now I've got this over here, I can choose a MIDI input to make my drums resonate in a certain way. So to make this more obviously heard, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the dry wet all the way up to 100 so we can hear the effect more clearly. I'm also going to set the MIDI input from my piano track, which is my E-piano faceplant track. Let's also switch this to poly mode. And that is going to help us hear the chords because we have polyphonic stuff, right? We have more than one note playing at the same time. If this were set to mono, we can take a listen to how that sounds later too. But here is poly. Here is the spectral resonator mode set to MIDI instead of internal, and here we go. So poly and mono, just one note. Cool. Yeah! Let's blend that in. I can also transpose this. Change the decay. So it's almost like a pad. Or make things even shorter. So it's almost like chords that are being very tightly layered with drums. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. So that is just a little bit of our first look at that. I saw a couple of interesting comments kind of come in already. Enigmatic Onion, hello, greetings, howdy to you, greetings. Aguante is throwing us a couple of like mathematical equations in the chat, which is awesome. Yeah, totally. 110 is like 2 octaves below 440. So lots of math stuff. Yes, lots of automation too, though. Stuff definitely. It's very cool. Something that might be interesting to do, which actually let's try out in this case. Let's do a little bit of maybe extended sorts of things going on. So what I'm gonna do over here is I'll just pull over copies of these 2 clips. We'll do the same thing. We'll have these, but let's try to automate a little bit of the dry wet perhaps, as well as the decay time. I think that could be super cool. What I want to do is right click or control click and say show automation. I think this is a good one to go with. Great. So let's do this. Let's set the decay time to like about maybe 100 or so. And I want that to be the decay time that we end up at. So we can kind of start off with a longer decay time and slowly come back in. Let's do the same thing with the dry wet control. And maybe for the dry wet control in particular, in this last bar, let's have everything dry. So we'll just make this part totally dry. And then we'll bring stuff back in over here. So let's also go ahead and maybe switch this up a little bit. Great. So yeah, let's see what happens over here. Just adding a couple of like interesting automation-y types of things. Here we go. That could be a cool thing, maybe. If you high pass filter it in the silent section, that could be really neat too. But yeah, just some ideas with the automation stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and delete the automation because I still want to play around with a couple of these things. So let's delete these. But very exciting. When I first found this out, I was like, hey, this is exactly what I used to do with vocoders and drums. Because I mentioned this in a previous stream too, but one thing I like to do in a lot of my tunes is instead of just having the drums, I will actually create chords out of the drums so that I can use them as layers, particularly in more of my... Yeah, interestingly enough, I do tend to use them more in my drum and bass tunes. I don't know if anyone's listened to any drum and bass recently, but I did have a tune that was out in the end of last year called Reverie, where this is a technique that is used. Except it was before... No, was it with Spectral Resonator? No, that was before Spectral Resonator. So I ended up using like a vocoder for that, Live's vocoder device. But my other tune that I've been performing a lot recently called Destiny, which is also another drum and bass tune that uses Spectral Resonator in it. So I dare someone to look in this, listen to the song, and you can find it somewhere in there. But yeah, there's so many things that I could talk about with Spectral Resonator. One thing that I don't want to forget about a lot, which is maybe a little bit of a kind of hidden gem in some ways, is this idea of pitch bend. This is such a cool feature, everyone. I was really excited when I found out about it. But to kind of illustrate a little bit of how this works, it might be nice to do a little bit of pitch bending first in the original MIDI track, because what we're doing right now, especially if you just tuned in to YouTube and joined remind us over here is that we're using the MIDI information in my electric piano track to, in a way, kind of trigger the drums and have them have some harmonic content. So all of the MIDI signals that I'm doing and dealing with are still in the electric piano track. So to that end, I want to be able to edit a little bit of the MIDI information that's going on here. So let's go ahead and I'll exit out of automation mode. Instead, I want to focus a little bit more on this particular section over here. And I want to head over to my envelopes tab and let's change pitch bend. Ooh, and because I was using my morph just now, I may have poked around a little bit and already inserted some pitch bend stuff. So let's go ahead and just select all of these, Command A, backspace. And I think what I want to do is, let's do a pitch bend every half a bar. So for example, over here, let's do a pitch bend upwards. And then over here, we'll do a pitch bend downwards. Again, this is in the envelopes tab in Live 11. It's in a slightly different location from Live 10 and Live 9 if you were a user of Live 10 and or Live 9. So let's go ahead and, let me just make sure I got on there. Great. Okay, cool. So here we go. This is what we wanted to do. Let's take a listen to just the piano part first, and then we'll play a little bit with the resonator stuff. So here we go. Cool. So you can kind of hear how there's like a very subtle slide at the end. I'll just make that a little bit louder because I think it might not have been super easy to hear. So here we go. Let's give that a longer release too. So pretty subtle pitch bend. That's all right. Yeah, we've got like a nice healthy pitch bend at the moment. The thing about pitch bend though is that depending on what kind of synth you're using, you can change the pitch bend accordingly to any number of semitones, right? So the way that spectral resonator works, kind of going back to that, is if we're taking the MIDI signal from somewhere, we also have the agency to change how much of that pitch is bending. So let's go ahead and re-solo the drums. We'll take a listen again to the dry, I'll mix in the wet, and then we'll go ahead and change the pitch bend parameter. Here we go. Cool, so now you can hear pitch bend at the end of every phrase. Great, and you can hear that the pitch bending is still fairly subtle. It's only like by 2 semitones, so nothing that's super drastic. In fact, 2 semitones is a fairly standard pitch bend amount. Oftentimes you'll have like 1, 2, 5, 7, sometimes you'll have 12 as well. So let's maybe try 12. Let's see what happens if we change this pitch bend value to 12. So instead of 2, let's do 12. And that's not even the maximum yet, so there's some fun stuff that can go on. But here we go. Let's take a listen again to this and see how it sounds. Let's mix in some of the dry drums. I love how in the spectrogram too, you can kind of see like the blend of these different sounds. Like we got more of the dry stuff in the low frequency, so that's really coming through with the kick. So I love that so much. I think it's so wonderful. When I first found out about this, I was like totally mind blown, super happy about it. But to that end, speaking about having, different kinds of parameters to play around with, something else that blew my mind too was the different settings of modulation modes for our spectral resonators. So that we can hear some of these differences, a little bit differently, and then we can, kind of do some comparisons about them. Let's go ahead and up the dry wet again. But instead of keeping this on none as a modulation mode, I'm going to go ahead and start going through chorus, wander, and my favorite, granular. But let's start at chorus. So here we go. Here's none first. So no modulation. Now some chorusing. It's pretty subtle. Let's go back. And let me also actually make the pitch bend back to normal again, so it's not super drastic, driving everybody insane. Yeah. So the chorus mode, if anyone here is, you know, good or good friends with like the chorus ensemble device or chorusing in general, you can kind of hear that as a similar effect. And it's using different kinds of small waves to modulate the spectrum's different frequencies for every partial. So it's pretty neat. I like how that sounds a lot. So that's chorusing, pretty subtle. I like wander a lot too. That's maybe my second favorite-ish. So here's none again. And wander. We can also change the mod rate. And change the pitch mod semitones. Very cool stuff too. Now one thing that I like to do a lot of, which maybe I may let this go for a little bit longer, but I love the granular mode so much. And for a number of reasons, maybe once I do this, you'll understand why. But here we go. Here is none. And then I'll switch over to granular. Oh, we don't hear anything because, yeah. Here we go. I love this so much, y'all. It's crazy how much I love this. Okay, cool. Let's change a little bit of the damping. Maybe stretch this out a little bit too. Let's go ahead and pop this up into the normal octave. Beautiful. Higher modulation rate. Blend it in a little bit with the drums. It's just like, I love it so much. And if you go into like super high octaves, or if you transpose this by say like maybe 24 semitones, possibly even higher, you'll start to get some really beautiful sorts of textures. Almost a little bit sample and hold style, old school electronic. But because you're taking all of these FFTs and you're working with very pure tones like sine waves and such, it ends up being quite beautiful. So, yay! Increase the delay. If I turn off the pitch bend, it will also sound quite nice too. Because you start getting more of like a tinkly sort of sound. And of course, playing with the modulation rate too. But yeah, that is a little bit, or maybe a lot, on a Spectral Resonator. Again, probably one of like my most favorite things ever. And of course, one thing that I used to like to do a lot, not used to, I still do this, is that depending on, you know, the way that you're kind of manipulating the granularity of this, something that you could do is resample all of this while everything's going on. So for example, let's go ahead, and this is a technique that I started to use a lot, especially when the take lanes stuff came out in Live 11. So I usually create a new audio track. I'll call this whatever is appropriate. So maybe in this case, we'll call it like stars, because these sound like stars. And let's take the input instead of external one. We'll take the input from my drums track. And what I tend to do is I just leave this on loop. I turn the monitoring off. I record into the track and just see whatever happens. So for example, here we go. Let's do some experimentation. And let's also show the take lanes while we're here so that we can see that. Here we go. And while this is happening, I'll keep tweaking. Let's bring down decay. Maybe change transposition also. All of these different parameters. Nice. Cool. And when I'm done, we can just press spacebar to stop. And now I've got a bunch of samples that I made myself through playing with the drums. So that's something that I started doing a lot as well with the Spectral devices. I just found that they were really intuitive for this kind of composition. And then we could go ahead and come in here and be like, hey, all of these different takes, let's find one that we really like and let's go ahead and make something fun out of it. So that's a little bit of what I've been doing. But also hi to the folks who just joined in the chat. Hello to Patrick. Yeah! I'm glad that it sounds pronounced. Sometimes like there are some effects that I do through the stream that sound really cool on my end and it totally gets lost through the internet. So I'm great. I'm glad that we can hear that. Very cool stuff. Ooh, Enigmatic Onion. That's a great thought. This could work really well as a layer in a hyperpop song. Excellent. I hope you do that. Please do that. It would be awesome. Yes. Aliens Sing Hello. I think the granular mod stuff really, that's probably one of my personal favorites. Let's also go ahead and just delete all the automation because when I was doing that, I was poking around with everything. So we can just command delete. Ooh. But yeah, lots of really great things while I'm doing this automation deletion. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I know it's slightly past my half-hour mark, but I just want to check in with everybody. Thank you for tuning in to 343 TV, everyone. My name's Claire. I'm an Ableton-Certified trainer and an instructor at 343 Labs. We are excited to have you here in our 343 TV space. This is season 3 of our daily streaming show where we stream every day at 1 p.m. EST. So we're glad that everybody's here. We see a couple of new folks join in every time. So thank you for joining us. And today we're focusing on spectral effects. And I'll also take one step back. I host the Monday show that's called Tips and Tricks. And that usually involves things related to Ableton Live. So regardless of whether it's, some a little bit more, say, esoteric things, a little bit weirder stuff, or maybe even just general stuff about if you have any questions or how to get started or how to, do a certain thing in live. We cover that in the stream, and you can also watch our replays from previous seasons too. So we've done season 1 and season 2. Previously, you can find the archives on our YouTube channel. To that end, please, if you are enjoying what you're seeing, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can be notified whenever we go live. You can also turn on that notification bell to be able to get notified for whenever we go live, especially because this is something I was reminded of last week. But whenever we do daylight savings, it's always like a little crazy for everyone who's not in the United States. It's a little weird. So yes, if you do want to get that ping, that message that's like, hey, 343 TV is live, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we are actually very close to hitting one of our goals, which was to try to get to 10,000. So please spread the word. We hope you're enjoying the stuff that we are sharing. It's been a pleasure sharing. So thank you for joining. And that is the quick spiel I wanted to do. Now back to some other fun spectral stuff. So here we go. We've got Spectral Resonator. I'm pretty satisfied with how this sounds, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And what I want to do is maybe just close it up temporarily. Let's shift our focus now to spectral time. Now, something that I didn't mention quite so much in detail just now is how Spectral Resonator is found in the reverb and resonance folder of audio effects in Live 11. This is something that was introduced in Live 11 as a new feature where you've got the different types of effects organized into folders. I personally like this. I know some people don't. Sorry. But I personally think it's great, more from like an educator sort of perspective, I guess. But yes, the other device that we have for spectral stuff, which we can take a look at right now, is in the delay and loop category. And maybe we might be able to guess that from its name too, right? Spectral time. So let's go ahead and again, we're going to use our drums example. We should be back to normal now. Let's take a listen and jog our memories a little. Yeah. Nice drum and bass. Cool. And I might even use this in like a tune. That's something that I love doing too, and I can totally talk about it another time, but it's like, I love starting with loops. Really, really good stuff, and you can get inspired by them. You don't always have to use them, but wonderful stuff. Let's drag spectral time over, and here we go. Cool. So while I'm here, I might, for now, actually delete Spectral Resonator because it's creating lots of delay over here. Let's go ahead and delete this. But yes, we've got spectral time. So before we even do anything, let's go ahead and take a listen. Also noticing that we have dry wet at 50%. So let's see what happens. Woo! So because of that, I feel like a lot of people between Spectral Time and Spectral Resonator, maybe it's a little bit harder to get started with Spectral Time, but I like it a lot. And partially it's because there's this wonderful section in Spectral Time that does a lot of freezing. And that's actually a lot of what, the FFT stuff is going on with these things, or what it's good for, at least I found in a musical context. It's very cool to figure out like, okay, this is what the tool does, and then how do we actually use it in a creative sort of way. So one of the immediate sorts of ways that I started thinking a lot about Spectral Time is just through the use of like the freeze knob and what that actually does. So let's go ahead and take a listen. I'm going to adjust maybe a couple of the dry wet settings, and I'll also activate the freeze and then deactivate the freeze. And I love to see what people think or ask people if they hear anything. So here we go. Let's do Spectral Time. Yeah. Freeze it. And then unfreeze. Freeze. That is awesome. That needs to be resampled. Let's go for it. And let's let it hang out for a while. Sweet. So that's why also sometimes I just like having like a track handy, because it's like, hey, it found the sound. Probably I'll use that later. So that's great. But yes, Spectral Time and the freezing stuff. The cool part about this too is that yes, you can like automate it, which is pretty fun. So you can like do it on, off, those kinds of things. One thing that I do think is pretty useful as well is that this particular device lets you do a lot of things like in sync, and also like with like the delay that's built into it too. So that's something that I think might be cool to play around with a bit more, and I will play around with that in a little bit too. I see I see a couple of the horse emojis from Simple Sam. It totally kind of sounds a little bit like a horse, or a bunch of horses maybe. Maybe this is a stampede. Whoops. Sorry, Ableton developers. No, but that's good. Maybe sometimes we want a stampede. In this case, I think I might. But I might also want to maybe make this delay timed, because at the moment I do have this delay section that's on, and it's not synced to the tempo. So that's kind of why we're getting a little bit of that. I can sync it in a moment. But maybe just to reiterate also a little bit of what the freeze section does. Let's turn off the delay for now, and we'll just take a listen to the freeze. So here's the freeze. Yeah, cool stuff. But you can always kind of blend it in a little bit. And depending on where exactly you freeze, you'll freeze a different frequency, or a different part of the spectrum. Whoa, that's crazy. So yeah, that's always something very cool to try out. Something else that I liked playing around with, like I said, is just the delay section. So before I dive, if I have time, oh my god, the time passes so quickly in the stream. I'm gonna turn off the freezer. It's so funny how in my head, that totally sounded okay. And then when I spoke it out, I started thinking about my refrigerator. So let's turn off my refrigerator. Let's turn on the delay. And let's see what we get over here. This part is pretty straightforward, but it has some interesting things with tilt and spray, which I'll talk about in a moment. So here we go. All these things. If we want to sync it up, we can switch from time mode to notes, and we can even go specifically into 16ths. So now we have 16th notes. If I want to do like a specific 1/16th note delay, then I can make this 1. So there's that, which I thought was pretty cool. And even playing with the idea of feedback and shift. So I'll do a little bit of this before I speak more. I'll tweak a couple of things first. So here we go. Yeah, this one's one of my favorites to do. Cool. So by using shift and also by using the feedback knob in tandem and also having a synced type of delay, I found that to be like a really great way of coming up with alternate rhythms also that kind of interlock a little bit with the drums, especially for tunes that are, or genres like drum and bass or maybe jungle that are a little bit faster and you have a lot more movement going on. This can be super useful if you want to create a little bit more of that sort of thing. So that's totally an option as well. And of course, we could also do the same thing that we did just now. We could make this all dry wet and we can just listen to the, we can make this all wet to 100%. And then we can listen to the wet output and then sample that too. So could even use it with the freezer. If we turn on freeze. Okay, come back. That's enough. But you can obviously see that I've had way too much fun with this in the past. But yeah, so that's a little bit of some things that I like to do with the delay. And I will say this too. So the Spectral Time device contains both the delay and the freezer. The freezer? Yes, the freezer. I'm never gonna like get that out of my head now. It contains both the delay and the freezer. And it has one overall dry wet knob that affects the entire freezer and delay, but you also do have the dry wet that's specific to the delay. So that's what I was talking about just now, where if you wanted to just play back the delayed part, then you could make the dry wet 100% so that you wouldn't hear any of the original signal. But if you do want some of the original signal, which I think could be cool in this case, since we're doing drums, right? We do want a little bit of that initial punch there. So yeah, we can totally do this. Might even tune it a little bit. Get like a Tommy sort of effect. Cool. And if we wanted to, we could also change a little bit of the spray. This is something I like to do a lot with delays that tend to be in a little bit of like a higher frequency. By changing the spray amount, what we'll end up doing is kind of, spraying quite literally the delay times across the time range depending on the frequency of it. So that could be pretty cool as well. Get a little bit of that. So we end up almost getting something a little bit more akin to grain delay stuff. And as you can hear, the tail is actually very nice. So I'm gonna try to keep as quiet as I can. I'll play it and then I'll stop and you can kind of hear the tail of the delay as it fades away. So here we go. Like that fading off tail. I love that sound so much. So that's another way that you can kind of use that as well. And that's kind of some of my favorite parts, I think, about the new Spectral devices. I know we're kind of like running out of time. I can't believe time passes so quickly. But yeah, all of these in combination, I'm so glad that I just noticed someone mentioned this as well. But yeah, it's you could totally use this in a live performance context in a really effective manner. A lot of people use freeze verbs if like you're ever freezing a reverb or the tail of that reverb, and that's a function that already exists in the normal reverb device in live. So that's pretty cool to explore. If you haven't explored it yet, I'd encourage you to. It's very fun. And that's one part about freezing. But yeah, when you freeze the spectrum in this case, or the spectral info that's coming through, you get some pretty beautiful results. And even if it's not necessarily beautiful to you, it could be beautiful to someone else. So that's always cool too. And I'm just going to catch up with a couple of the comments in the chat. Patrick, yeah, totally. For like a sick breakdown, I think like I remember what you were talking about just now with the rhythmic stuff. I think that's when it might have come in. Let's see. Oh, Peter Brandenburg. Hello. I think that's the first time I've seen you in the chat, so welcome. You said, I have to make background music for some spoken text. Do you have any basic tips, like what instruments are good, etc.? That's an excellent question. It really depends on, I guess, what kind of background music your client wants. It sounds from... I may be guessing this, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but if you're making it for somebody else, then it would be good to consult them on it and what they prefer. I've worked with several like poets and spoken word artists before, and I find that it's best to ask them for what they like. But also because we want to elevate the words, sometimes I find that less is more really, oftentimes when you're dealing with spoken word and poetry. I might not even go with any of the spectral resonator devices on drums necessarily, but maybe on chords. That could be very cool. And maybe that might even be a good place for us to kind of go back to. If I just took my faceplant thing, my piano sound on its own, and if I were to put let's go back to spectral resonator on it, even that itself could start being very suitable, very ambient kind of sounding. So let's come over here. And if we slow this down, like the tempo of everything, could start getting some interesting more textural types of things, add in like some reverb, delay, you get some cool stuff in the background. So that might be cool. Wow, what a nice question. I'm glad that we caught that at the end of the track. Cool. Thank you for that question. Stav, you had a question too. How would you use the freeze function other than a sampling a cool sound you might get? Yeah, it could be neat to do it in like a performative type of setting. And also, if you have the freeze function kind of, let's say, blended in, you'll be able to turn it on and off, get different types of textures, offer different moments that are super special. I think that's also something that we think about a lot in production and on a broader sort of scale. Not just creating like a full linear experience, but also some special moments here and there. Ooh, Sam, where does it get the tones from? Where does it get the tones from? I'm not super sure what you mean by that, but let me take a guess. If this is a wrong guess, sorry. But let's. I think maybe that was when we were talking about spectral time, I'm guessing. So it catches the spectrum itself, and when it freezes, it is freezing that part of the spectrum. So that's kind of how I think that's what the question was. We can talk about it some other time too. But yeah, live performance would be great. Being able to use this in a more active sort of setting as well. And Patrick, that's actually a really, really great question. You can, comment. You could really make a whole track from spectral time. It's really all that you need. Or maybe even spectral resonator, because then you could use like the MIDI input stuff to be able to use it to that end. And something to note also that I was thinking about a lot was, at first I was like, hey, it would be cool to kind of, if there was also MIDI input in spectral time, because then you can kind of blend all of these things together. But that's all right. It's all good. There's tons of ways to use the one thing as well. And great. I think that's, wow, we did quite a lot of things. You know what? I might actually keep this, y'all, like for this part with the take lanes and stuff. I'm glad that we did all of that, because now we have a couple of different options, right? I think the freeze that came in just now is pretty neat. Yeah, awesome. And even within here, I can start, playing with different pitches. If I have the right thing soloed. Also just going between the different lanes. Yeah, we have some stars over there. I think more stars below, possibly? Yeah. Great. That was a good one. Maybe using that as some kind of transition or something. Great. And very quickly, this is a little bit, I guess, of a nugget of info. If you haven't already seen the intro to Live 11 video that I did on the 343 Labs YouTube channel, if we wanted to piece some of these together, we could totally turn on the draw mode and start putting them into our comp. So picking different kinds of pieces, and all of these are now heard in the main track. So yeah, a little bit of fun stuff in Live 11. I'm definitely very happy that all of these features came out. Again, had such a blast kind of testing them out too. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the stream. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my pencil mode, get out of draw mode. Let's also maybe close up the take lanes because we don't need them anymore. But lots of cool, fun stuff. We only worked with drums today, everyone, and a little bit of the piano stuff too, electric piano stuff. But lots of cool things. Hopefully, this gave you maybe a few ideas and a little bit more insight into the spectral devices. Once again, please enter the giveaway. We have a giveaway for iZotope's Nectar, which is an amazing vocal processing device, plugin, I should say, rather. And it's wonderful. There's so many different little modules that you can use to EQ a vocal, compress a vocal, all of these different kinds of things. Do some tuning to the vocal too, adding reverb, delay, a bunch of cool stuff. So please enter the giveaway. We want you to win. And I will also say that next week, as a heads up, I'll be doing a little bit of controllerism with Live 11. So like some fun things that I've come across in Live 11 that maybe you already know about, maybe you didn't know about them, that I wanted to maybe highlight for those of us who may be more interested in the performative options behind some of the new Live 11 features. So super excited for that. That's going to be really fun. I'm going to bring Push along. We'll talk a little bit more about the Morph as well, which is an amazing friend, so thank you, Stencil friends. I don't know if Stencil's still in the chat, but yeah, check out Stencil, everyone. And yes, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Hope you all have a great week ahead. Tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time for our, oh my god, I had a brain fart. For our creative director, Tetro, who's doing Tetro Talks. He's going to be with Eagles and Butterflies, so very cool. Stay tuned for that. And I will see everybody next week. So thanks, everyone. Bye.
Fill the spaces in between us. I want you to fly. You want me to lie awake. The grass beneath our feet. Open fields and fountains. We'll see. We'll see. I'm praying, open fields and